Hello everyone, I'm Mr. Grammar. Today, we will read The Sniper. But before we do so, let's review historical background on this story. Liam O'Flaherty's short story, The Sniper, was first published in 1923 during a turbulent period in Irish history. The story is set in Dublin during the Irish Civil War, a conflict that erupted shortly after Ireland gained independence from Britain. The war was fought between two factions of the Irish Republican Army, the pro-treaty forces, who supported the Anglo-Irish Treaty, establishing the Irish Free State, and the anti-treaty forces who opposed it because it left Ireland divided and still partly under British influence. O'Flaherty served in World War I and later participated in revolutionary activities in Ireland, experiences that shaped his understanding of violence, loyalty, and human suffering. The Sniper remains one of O'Flaherty's most studied works for its concise yet powerful portrayal of the futility of war and the loss of humanity in violent conflict. The Sniper by Liam O'Flaherty. The long June twilight faded into night. Dublin lay enveloped in darkness but for the dim light of the moon that shone through fleecy clouds, casting a pale light as of approaching dawn over the streets and the dark waters of the Liffey. Around the beleaguered four courts, the heavy guns roared. Here and there, through the city, machine guns and rifles broke the silence of the night, spasmodically, like dogs barking on lone farms. Republicans and Free Staters were waging civil war. On a rooftop near O'Connell Bridge, a Republican sniper lay watching. Beside him lay his rifle, and over his shoulders was slung a pair of field glasses. His face was the face of a student, thin and ascetic, but his eyes had the cold gleam of the fanatic. They were deep and thoughtful, the eyes of a man who is used to looking at death. He was eating a sandwich hungrily. He had eaten nothing since morning. He had been too excited to eat. He finished the sandwich and, taking a flask of whiskey from his pocket, he took a short drink. Then he returned the flask to his pocket. He paused for a moment, considering whether he should risk a smoke. It was dangerous. The flash might be seen in the darkness, and there were enemies watching. He decided to take the risk. Placing a cigarette between his lips, he struck a match, inhaled the smoke hurriedly, and put out the light. Almost immediately, a bullet flattened itself against the parapet of the roof. The sniper took another whiff and put out the cigarette. Then he swore softly and crawled away to the left. Cautiously, he raised himself and peered over the parapet. There was a flash, and a bullet whizzed over his head. He dropped immediately. He had seen the flash. It came from the opposite side of the street. He rolled over the roof to a chimney stack in the rear and slowly drew himself up behind it until his eyes were level with the top of the parapet. There was nothing to be seen, just the dim outline of the opposite housetop against the blue sky. His enemy was under cover. Just then, an armored car came across the bridge and advanced slowly up the street. It stopped on the opposite side of the street, 50 yards ahead. The sniper could hear the motor's stool panting. His heart beat faster. It was an enemy car. He wanted to fire, but he knew it was useless. His bullets would never pierce the steel that covered the gray monster. Then around the corner of a side street came an old woman, her head covered by a tattered shawl. She began talking to the man in the turret of the car. She was pointing to the roof where the sniper lay, and informed her. The turret opened. A man's head and shoulders appeared. Looking towards the sniper raised his rifle and fired. The head fell heavily on the turret wall. The woman darted towards the side street. The sniper fired again. The woman whirled round and fell with a shriek into the gutter. Suddenly, from the opposite roof, a shot rang out, and the sniper dropped his rifle with a curse. The rifle clattered to the roof. The sniper thought the noise would wake the dead. He stooped to pick the rifle up. He couldn't lift it. His forearm was dead. "I'm hit," he muttered. Dropping flat onto the roof, he crawled back to the parapet. With his left hand, he felt the injured right forearm. The blood was oozing through the sleeve of his coat. There was no pain, just a dead-end sensation, as if the arm had been cut off. Quickly, he drew his knife from his pocket, opened it on the breastwork of the parapet, and ripped open the sleeve. There was a small hole where the bullet had entered. On the other side, there was no hole. The bullet had lodged in the bone. It must have fractured it. He bent the arm below the wound. The arm bent back easily. He ground his teeth to overcome the pain. Then, taking out his field dressing, he ripped open the packet with his knife. He broke the neck of the iodine bottle and let the bitter fluid drip into the wound. A paroxysm of pain swept through him. He placed the cotton wadding over the wound and wrapped the dressing over it. He tied the ends with his teeth. Then he lay still against the parapet and, closing his eyes, he made an effort of will to overcome the pain. In the street beneath, all was still. The armored car had retired speedily over the bridge with the machine gunner's head hanging lifeless over the turret. The woman's corpse lay still in the gutter. The sniper lay still for a long time, nursing his wounded arm and planning escape. Morning must not find him wounded on the roof. The enemy on the opposite roof covered his escape. He must kill that enemy. But he cannot use his rifle. He had only a revolver to do it. Then he thought of a plan. Taking off his cap, he placed it over the muzzle of his rifle. Then he pushed the rifle slowly upward over the parapet until the cap was visible from the opposite side of the street. Almost immediately, there was a report, and a bullet pierced the center of the cap. The sniper slanted the rifle forward. The cap clipped down into the street. Then, catching the rifle in the middle, the sniper dropped his left hand over the roof and let it hang, lifelessly. After a few moments, he let the rifle drop to the street. Then he sank to the roof, dragging his hand with him. Crawling quickly to his feet, he peered at the corner of the roof. His ruse had succeeded. The other sniper, seeing the cap and rifle fall, thought that he had killed his man. He was now standing before a row of chimney pots, looking across with his head clearly silhouetted against the western sky. The Republican sniper smiled and lifted his revolver above the edge of the parapet. The distance was about 50 yards, a hard shot in the dim light, and his right arm was paining him like 1,000 devils. He took a steady aim. His hand trembled with eagerness. Pressing his lips together, he took a deep breath through his nostrils and fired. He was almost deafened by the report, and his arm shook with the recoil. Then across the smoke cleared, he peered across and uttered a cry of joy. His enemy had been hit. He was reeling over the parapet in his death agony. He struggled to keep his feet, but he was slowly falling forward as if in a dream. The rifle fell from his grasp, hit the parapet, fell over, bounded off the pole of a barber's shop beneath, then clattered on the pavement. Then the dying man on the roof crumbled up and fell forward. The body turned over and over in space and hit the ground with a dual thud. Then it lay still. The sniper looked at his enemy falling, and he shuddered. The lust of battle died in him. He became bitten by remorse. The sweat stood out in beads on his forehead. Weakened by his wound and the long summer day of fasting and watching on the roof, he revolted from the sight of the shattered mass of his dead enemy. His teeth chattered. He began to gibber to himself, cursing the war, cursing himself, cursing everybody. He looked at the smoking revolver in his hand, and with an oath, he hurled it to the roof at his feet. The revolver went off with a concussion, and the bullet whizzed past the sniper's head. The shock frightened him back to his senses. His nerves steadied. The cloud of fear scattered from his mind, and he laughed. Taking the whiskey flask from his pocket, he emptied a drop. He felt reckless under the influence of the spirit. He decided to leave the roof now and look for his company commander to report. Everywhere around was quiet. There was not much danger in going through the streets. He picked up his revolver and put it in his pocket. Then he crawled down through the skylight to the house underneath. When the sniper reached the laneway on the street level, he felt a sudden curiosity as to the identity of the enemy sniper whom he had killed. He decided that he was a good shot, whoever he was. He wondered whether he knew him. Perhaps he had been in his own company before the split in the army. He decided to risk going over to take a look at him. He peered around the corner into O'Connell Street. In the upper part of the street, there was heavy firing, but around here, all was quiet. The sniper darted across the street. A machine gun tore up the ground around him with a hail of bullets, but he escaped. He threw himself face downward beside the corpse. The machine gun stopped. Then the sniper turned around over the dead body and looked into his brother's face. What does O'Flaherty teach us about guns specifically in the sniper? In the sniper, guns serve as powerful symbols that reflect both the physical and psychological consequences of war. They represent not only the tools of violence, but also the emotional toll and moral instability that the sniper faces. Dehumanization and detachment. The sniper's rifle symbolizes the emotional detachment created by war. It allows him to kill from afar, turning human beings into mere shooting targets. The detachment exposes how civil war strips away empathy and transforms individuals into instruments of ideology rather than people with shared humanity. Power and survival. The gun also symbolizes power and control. In the chaos of war-torn Dublin, the sniper's survival depends entirely on his weapon. It becomes an extension of his body and identity, showing how soldiers are forced to rely on violence as their only means of survival. It is either kill or be killed. Division and conflict. On a broader level, the gun represents the division within Ireland itself. It is the physical manifestation of the ideological split between the pro and anti-treaty forces. Each side uses the same weapons, underscoring the tragic irony that both are fighting for what they believe is the same cause, Irish freedom, yet destroying one another in the process. Although the two snipers are from opposing forces, they are still both Irish and brothers. The sniper realizes that he killed his own brother. The weapon that once gave him power now embodies guilt, grief, and the realization of shared suffering. It makes a reader question whether war is really worth the price. Through the symbolism of guns, O'Flaherty exposes the moral emptiness of civil war and the way violence consumes both the winner and the victim. Of course, war is fought for a noble cause, but one must keep in mind the high price that must be paid in return.